Yeah, you've obviously had a great time on the T-38. Can you share maybe a couple of stories that stick out in your mind for our viewers?
In general, I know this is not a specific story, but I was very grateful for my tour on the T-38 adversary squadron because it exposed me to the training environment that Blue Air goes through. So when I went over to the Raptor, I had been a part of briefs and debriefs, being a threat replication platform. Going into the Raptor, I had a better foundational understanding of the threats and how they
Hmm.
executed, so that when I was on the Blue Air side, I thought that that helped me a lot and made me better in that sense. I was a very mediocre Raptor pilot overall, but at least that my T-38 tour helped me a lot on understanding Red Air and understanding the threat platforms and just understanding how, like we talked about the day to day, and understanding how a shot valve goes, and how we construct debrief focal points, how we investigate the entire training scenario in the debrief. I was used to that already in that structure, and so I felt that it helped me adapt well to that training environment because it was all familiar to me. Specific stories, wow, there's a lot. I had a lot of fun in the Ad Air Squadron.
Yeah.
The atmosphere when I got there, and it's not the same nowadays. Anything that's great,
Yeah.
the Air Force is going to find a way to kill that eventually. But
Hmm.
when I got there, because it was a brand new thing to send brand new lieutenants out of pilot training there, the makeup or the demographics of the squadron when I got there were all crusty old lieutenant colonels or wing commander equivalents in the
Yeah,
RAF.
yeah.
And this was their sunset tour. And as a result, morale was great. Everyone was happy to be there. You're flying out of Tyndall, flying over the beach every day, and then going to the beach after the debrief pretty much every day, or going on your jet ski. So, just as far as a squadron atmosphere, it was great. And they were even happier when we showed up because now there was these young and stupid lieutenants who didn't know what they were doing, and now they had someone that they could make fun of and and harass every day, and someone to make the coffee and the popcorn in the squadron bar.
Yeah.
So they were just ecstatic. So morale just even skyrocketed even further from there. So it was a great atmosphere, and we were excited to be there because we knew of what could potentially follow after this tour. So we knew that if we just did well and soaked it all in, that we could end up in a Raptor after that. So we were motivated. We were really excited. It was just a great atmosphere to be in. We loved it, and uh, we had naming ceremonies. I had a different name then. I wasn't named Ammo then. I was named Fryer in that
Right.
squadron. And then when I got to the Raptor, I was renamed Ammo. But just kind of getting your first induction into fighter pilot culture, it was a lot of fun in that sense. Other stories, we went cross country a lot. We went off station quite a bit. Uh, so this is something that probably doesn't even happen nowadays. Maybe it does, but probably not because it was really fun. But every squadron has what's called a flying hour program. It's basically your budgeted allocation of flying hours. And we were behind on our flying hour program. So
Mm.
when we all showed up, this group of lieutenants from pilot training, they basically said, look, if you can select an airfield that has a start cart and an 8,000-foot runway, we'll approve you to take the jet on the weekends and you just go
Wow.
wherever you want to go. So on the weekends, we had our own personal T-38 to fly around the
Crazy.
country. And so I tried to fly. I visited my parents, flew and visited friends
Wow.
in different parts of the country. I couldn't believe it. You know, you had your own personal T-38 to fly around the country. And I say 8,000-foot runway and a start cart because the T-38, it because of its short wings and how fast it flies. You need a long, long runway to operate off of. And it doesn't have its own starter internally for the engines. So you have to plug it up to an air cart that
Mm.
uh, so they plug a hose on the bottom side and they spin up this air cart and has this pressurized air going into the engines of the jet that spin the turbine and allow it to start. So if you land at an airfield that doesn't have that, you are stuck there. You cannot start your engines without that
Right.
start cart. So that did limit where we could go. We had to always call ahead to the fixed base operator. Hey, do you have a start card? And it's like, yeah, we've got one. It hasn't run in about a year, so we'll call us back. We got to go and see if it'll start up.
Right.
Yeah. So that was always an adventure doing those cross country planning. But that was just amazing to get to have your own personal T-38 on the weekend and fly around. And yeah, it definitely overinflated some egos for sure.
Yeah.
That
And just on a side note, that
yeah.
ammo. So would that will always be military bases, or could you go into civil airports as well?
Yeah, we could go to civil airports.
Oh,
The
nice! Wow.
T-38 is probably next to the A-10, probably the most unclassified platform that we have. So there was absolutely no qualms, no concerns about us going to a civilian airfield as long as it just had an 8,000 foot minimum length and a start cart, cleared hot.
That's crazy. So would that be up to you to ring up the airfield or the base or whatever to say, have you got this, have you got that, or
That's
would
right.
you do? Yeah, you
It
would
was
do
up to
that,
us. Yep, we had
right?
to do all the planning ourselves, but that made us better because we weren't relying on anyone else to do the job for us, and so it helped us in developing that aeronautical decision making and those skills and coming up with a mission in our mind and coming up with a flight plan. So this was all part of the intent was to make us better pilots, and we were actually being good stewards of the taxpayer money because this basically forced us to fly more on the weekends and keep on developing our skills. And it gave us just enough autonomy so that there wasn't some more experienced person there holding our hand the whole way. I mean,
Yeah,
we had to put on our big boy pants, as we said. I know
yeah.
pants in the UK. Sorry, in the US.
Trousers.
I know the trousers, big boy trousers. There you go. Everyone in the UK is laughing at me now, but so it made us better because it forced us to do everything ourselves, and we had to own our decisions, and there was no one there to help us. So hopefully that helped us be a little bit more conservative in our decision making, just to help keep us out of trouble. But it was a great time. I'm so thankful for that. Other stories. One story that I remember fondly was when we were in New Orleans, the F-15C model squadron, they wanted to go and do air combat maneuvering, or ACM, and they wanted to do 2 versus 2. So it was two of us, the T-38s versus two F-15Cs, and we were always going to visual merges, and that was a lot of fun because uh, it was tricky in that we had to make sure, okay, we're getting 4 aircraft into the same piece of airspace, so we had to make sure from a safety standpoint we were deconflicted, but we had solid training rules. We had a solid brief in place that once we all called visual or tally, that we would then go and wrap up into these 2v2 kind of mini BFM
Nice.
flights within visual range of each other. It was a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and I loved that. And there was one moment where they did get confused where we were, and we were able to merge and kill both of them. So that was a lot of fun for us, but not so fun for them. So that they definitely spent the majority of their debrief talking about that particular engagement. Why did they lose SA, and how were we able to merge on them when they
Mhm.
were supposed to be the ones merging on us? So we provided some valuable training for them, and it was just a great time.
So
Yeah.
overall, yeah, how would you sum up their T-38, and what do you think its replacement's going to be? Is it the T-7? Is that one coming in still into service?
Correct. Yeah, the
Yeah.
T-7 is currently in development. It's a partnership between Boeing and I believe Saab,
Saab, I
where
think, yeah.
right, and sadly, as is most things happening with
Yeah.
Boeing nowadays, that project is suffering delays and setbacks, so the timeline keeps getting pushed to the right as far as when that's going to be fielded and fully replacing the T-38C model. Until that happens, the T-38C is going to forge on. Now, what's going to replace the A model? I'm not exactly sure what the game plan is for that. Whether they would take C models and replace them with that, or are they going to rely on civilian contract companies such as Draken or TAC Air, which, as you know, they fly Mirages, L-39s, a variety of different jet platforms that will equal or in many cases exceed what the T-38 can do, because many of them have radars and can carry more advanced jammers, etc. So it remains to be seen what the plan is to replace the T-38A in that adversary role. There's also a possibility that we'll develop a Red Air drone. Another thing that's being done is a lot of the 4th and 5th gen platforms have electronic training software. And I believe we may have discussed this when we were talking about the Raptor in the previous episode. But the Raptor has an embedded training mode where they can, with a computer system, emulate threats out there. I believe the Navy's doing this a lot as well, but having computerized threats that appear on Blue Air's screens, but there's not actually a real jet out there.
Right.
It's actually, in some cases, it's a bloke on the ground in a simulator, flying a simulator, and it is showing up through a data link. It's showing up in the Blue Air platform's radar scope as if it was an actual aircraft out there. So it's not a perfect system. Obviously, you can think of the limitations there. If there's problems with the data link or problems with the system on the ground, it's not always as great as just actually having a physical aircraft out there. But that's something that I would expect to see more and more of out there. For especially, you can't always get a B-2 out there. So imagine if you can electronically project a B-2 out there in the airspace instead of having a physical one out there. That's something where that type of replication is useful for. But if I had to guess, it would be either a purpose-built drone for Red Air, or the civilian companies like ATAC or Draken filling that gap once the A model is past its service lifespan.
Yeah, and before we wrap up, I have to ask you this actually. Why don't you go to? Do you not fancy working for Draken and go and flying whatever they have, F-16s or L-39s, F-59s, whatever they have?
Well, everyone who knows me knows that I do love to keep my options open. So I would never want to say I am not going to apply to those companies. Right now, where I am in my Air Force career, and also with my civilian job with a major airline, there's just, at this point in life, I'm not going to be applying to those. Now, that being said, do I miss strapping on a fast jet, and whether I'm Blue or Red Air, just screaming around the sky? Yes, I miss that a lot. And it's very tempting. So I'm never going to say never. Just right now, the season of life that I'm in, I'm not pursuing that option. But some of my friends are, and I'm very excited for them. And I'm looking forward to hearing their stories once they move over to those Civ Air or civilian Red Air platforms. Getting my words mixed up, sorry.
Absolutely. Well, Amo, thank you very much for coming on the show again and sharing a bit about your time on the T-38 and the ad roll. It's been an absolute fascinating discussion.
Cheers, Mike. And yeah, always great to be here, and looking forward to the next discussion.